Welcome back to episode 7 of Down Memory Lane. Mike Valenzano, sponsored by Storm, and new sponsor in the works. We're going to reveal that in the beginning of the new year, hopefully. But dealt with some health issues, so we are back better than ever, feeling good. That's why we had a little bit of a delay in the shows, so I apologize for that. But tonight's going to be a good one. So I want to preface the intro by saying this. I've been very fortunate through my experiences to bowling many different events on the professional and the amateur level. And I met many great people along the journey. This particular guy that I have tonight, he is the founder. I will say he is probably one of the greatest tournament directors in the history of the sport. And I've bowled in the U.S. Open. I've bowled in the Masters. I've bowled in the Hoinky, the Super, the Peterson, yada, yada, yada. I was never more nervous than to bowl Brad Edelman's high roller. And I want to welcome Brad on. So, Brad, how are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm fine, Mike. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That is the God's honest truth. I have bowled at every level there is, and I was never more nervous to bowl an event than the high roller, than my first.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That means it worked, because that's what we had in mind.
It did, and I think and the first year I bowled was 2004. And I believe that might have been the last year it was the one-game match format.
That sounds about right, yeah.
I got to the round of 64, and Andrew Kane was the winner that year. It was the Super Bowl high roller. So that's my first high roller experience.
Andrew Kane beat a lot of people over his career there.
Andrew Kane is not a slouch. We'll leave it at that.
No, sir.
But I want to thank you, and it is the holiday season. So thank you for giving me an hour, a couple minutes tonight, and with Thanksgiving a couple days away. I got in touch with you. You followed the page. You saw one of my other shows, and I had you on my notebook of I want to talk about the high roller and the Megabuck era. And we were talking about this a couple minutes ago. People today don't have a clue of what bowling used to be, what amateur bowling and Megabuck bowling was, and action bowling was years ago. You wrote a book. You wrote a book, and I was fortunate to get a copy of it. So thank you very much. I've read it twice. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
So I want to I don't have a script. I just want to go with this.
Yeah, sure.
How did the high roller start? What is the high roller? What was the brain sense behind the greatest amateur tournament in the history of the sport of bowling?
Well, when you say great, I appreciate all those comments, but a lot of most of it was just being in the right place at the right time. I mean, we did have some ideas. There was another event you might have known that tried this before us, at least got their material out before us. We thought we could do a better job, and we put together a group of pretty smart bowling people, I'd like to think. And that's when it started. And the tournament I mentioned that actually put the one-game thing on the map, American Dream, we first heard about that through a friend of yours. We talked about this earlier, Jack Jackson, who lived in Ocean County, bowled there all his life. And Jack and I were good friends. He was friends with my entire family. And he popped in one day and said, "Hey, look, I got this brochure called The American Dream. They say they're going to pay $1 million." And that's how we heard about it. And we kind of watched them. We had never attempted anything over a national scale, let alone in Las Vegas, let alone asking bowlers to send us a check for $1,000 when they had no idea who we were. But the first one worked out. Not as big as we had hoped, but large enough to give us a sense of, hey, I think we have something here. The bowlers who were here certainly enjoyed themselves. We had a great time. It was a blast.
So the American Dream, I've heard of that. Clemkin told me about that. That was out in Vegas, I believe, right?
No, that was actually in Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago area, yeah.
Okay. I thought that's something different. I know Steve had said there was another big one out in Las Vegas. I thought that was the one he was referring to.
Well, the promoters were from, one of them was from Las Vegas. That was basically a Chicago event, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Chicago area.
we got it off the ground. You ran the first one,
Yep.
and you mentioned, you send a check for $1,000. So to those people who don't know what your format was and what your entries were and what your prize fund was, what was it? And this is still the greatest thing ever, the greatest format, the greatest prize fund format in bowling, I think.
Well, it was a lot of fun for us too. Fun for some of the bowlers, not fun for some others. It was a tough format, not grueling. It was just a sprint. It was a 1-game match play. You drew for your lane, and you bowled a match against whoever drew the opposite lane. Mm-hmm. The $1,000 entry fee was the most exorbitant thing anybody heard, but we were flashing prizes of 200,000, 250,000 you could win, and enough people believed in us that we were able to pay 200,000 in the first year. Although entries grew in consecutive years, we elected to freeze it at 200,000 and pad up the middle and the bottom, let people get their expenses back. Because it cost a lot of money to come out there and bowl.
Yeah, they go flying across the country or some parts. Sometimes
sure were, absolutely, all over the world.
So, who was the first 200K winner we had in the high roller?
That would be the fella from Colorado who couldn't defend his title because he joined the PBA, and we disallowed.
And that was the other thing. So this was a strictly amateur event.
Yes.
No professional.
Mostly. Where there were a couple events we let certain status PBA members bowl.
That was later on, right? Or this not in the
even early on. I believe there was one we let regional players bowl who never had a national title. But for the most part, it was amateurs only.
Yeah, so like when you started in '82, so you weren't going to see Roth or Holman or Wayne Webb. Those guys were excluded from the field.
Excluded from the field, but they were all out there watching.
Now,
Roth was there every year.
Well, I know Roth did some of the commentary on some of the shows. I remember.
Yes. Yeah.
So did you ever have
on our staff?
Did you ever have guys like, the PBA guys like barking back, like, why don't you open it up to everybody, make it a truly open event where there's no PBA amateur? It's just you're a bowler, you put your 1,000 up and you bowl.
No, we thought about it. We tried to do an event with the PBA. I met with Mark Gerbrick one time, and we talked for hours about how we could combine the better amateurs with the PBA members, and we tried it. We got the brochures out. We accepted 50 entries when we were looking for 1,000. It was when we canceled it. But we learned from experience over the years. The majority of amateur players did not want to bowl anybody who had a PBA card, even if they didn't know who he was, what he averaged back home, anything about him. If he had a PBA card, he was dangerous on the lanes. That was the fear from the amateurs. And conversely, there were PBA members didn't want to bowl amateurs.
Really?
Well, sure. They didn't want to get beat by an amateur, number one. And there was plenty of that. Mm-hmm. And there was also the fact that a lot of these amateurs were great bowlers. Yeah. Still are.
The professional amateur, that's what they were referred to, was they made a living throwing a bowling ball, but they never possessed the PBA card.
Exactly.
So interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, there were much less. I mean, the word got around that the high roller was rampant with professional amateurs. If we had 1,200 entries, 600 of them, that's not the case. There might have been, there were 100 bowlers that were head and shoulders above everybody else.
What was your average field? 1,000 bowlers, 2,000 bowlers?
After the first year, we had 864 entries. Went to 1,000 the next year and never looked back. It grew every year until there was a downturn in the late 90s.
So honestly, 10% of the field you would think would have a puncher's chance to win the tournament. But
winning that tournament is a little different.
It is.
It is. There's a lot of luck involved. The draw is everything to a lot of bowlers. I mean, we've had bowlers. I'll give you an example. Paul Renteria, who won 2 of these for 200,000 each.
Mm-hmm.
On national TV, he shot 177 or 178 to win, and only shot 1 small deuce in 11 rounds.
Wow.
I mean, we kept him tough. They were tough. Paul's a good bowler.
Paul's a great player,
especially back then, and it was so there was a little bit, we had that slogan, anybody can win a 1-game match. Yeah, true to some point. You can't do it 11 times. The better bowlers will most likely win, but not necessarily that 100 bowler cream of the crop I'm talking about, the Barneses and Angelos and
the Team USA guys. Yeah.
Of course, they had a great payday every event because of the sweepers.
Please tell me about the sweepers. Now you mentioned that word. I was going to bring it up. Tell me about the sweepers. What were the sweepers?
Mike, were legendary. We're talking about 7 squads a day. There were 2 gamers, changed players. There were 7 squads a day, and we had room with 70 lanes at 6 to a pair. Do the math. Everyone was shut out with waiting lists. Mm-hmm. People that are standing around hoping somebody's going to not show up who are already paid. And then, and because of that, you had such great stories come out of the sweepers, involving players, like Barnes and Rudy, Rudy Kaz, just so many great stories just from the sweepers.
Barney told a story to me once on one of the shows we did that he won 2 of them in the same year. I think he kept saying the Friday night sweeper. The Friday night sweeper was the one he kept talking about. He won it for 20,000 and won another one for like 25. He said he was the only person to break 500 in the sweeper.
No, that's not necessarily true. There were other 500s in that 2-gamer, but he did win 2 in one event. And here's the rub, Mike.
Okay.
He won, I believe, 25,000. Might have been a Friday night sweeper. Came back Saturday night. And here's where it gets crazy. He drew the same pair as Friday night. Won again, had the cross he loved, and won another 20,000. So here he is with 45,000. Hasn't started his main event yet. Mm-hmm. He's won 45,000 plus whatever he won in side pots. Side pots were gigantic.
Oh, the action was unstable.
Well, I don't remember. That might have been before brackets. I'd have to look that one up. But he made a lot of money in those 2 squads and then lost his first match.
So is that the year he lost to the guy with the Velcro shoes he always talked about?
Yeah, it's possible.
He said he lost to one of the years he lost to a guy with Velcro shoes and a towel out of his pocket and sent him frying out of his mind.
Yeah, probably had 1 ball. might have rented house shoes. We saw some of that. We saw the money, the advertised money drew a lot of people that shouldn't have been there.
Did you have a lot of the local league hacks out of Nevada and California? Just, hey, $1,000, I'm going to try to. It's like buying a lottery ticket. Did you have those?
Yeah, sure. We did. We had a lot of sponsors back then. It's one of the differences from now. And we had a nice little old lady in town here in Vegas that would put 11 or 12 bowlers in the tournament. She had a lot of money, obviously. And only because she happened to like them and they couldn't afford the ball. So every year, and they weren't necessarily good bowlers. And we even spoke with her once. And I got her aside and said, Fran, that's a great thing you're doing for these bowlers, giving them a chance, but they don't have much of a chance to help bail you out with all this money you're spending. And she didn't care. She went along with the program. She knew exactly what could happen.
And there were a lot of I guess you want to call them groups. You want to call it from different parts of the country. So you mentioned this woman had 10 or 11 people she would put in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw a name out from my neck of the woods here in the Northeast, Chris Viali. And he had his group of guys that he would bring out there.
Yeah.
Him and Litchie and all those guys. And then you had the guys.
Scotty Oliver and the whole crew.
Yep, and you had Texas and all those guys, the Joe Vito guys and whatnot.
Yeah, San Antonio guys.
So yeah. I mean, it just had to be intense. I can't imagine walking into a bowling center and seeing 70, 80 lanes going, and just the groups of people behind certain pairs. the action was just nonstop there. Like it was wall to wall, probably, right? I think is he frozen? I think
No,
there he is.
well, I'm back. Yeah.
Okay, he's back.
I'm going to turn my phone off. How's that?
Oh, that may work.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, there were groups from every area of the country, really. New York, especially Texas and California, the big areas.
Yeah.
And after the first couple events, these guys got to know each other. They weren't just bowling against each other; they were bowling, with each other, crossing pairs and sweepers, and hanging out afterwards. And boy, I'll tell you, it created a ton of friendships, which also helped along the way. It was a reunion type atmosphere every year. Hey, Mike, glad to see you.
Mm.
How you doing? Haven't seen you since last year. Or how'd you do in that last round? We had to get out. Just constant conversation, usually about the high roller until the end of the night when they sat at the bar behind lanes 31, 32, which stayed open most of the night.
That's insane, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were probably, and I'm going to say it again, you were the pinnacle of tournament bowling. Like your brand, you built this thing up. But there were also other events like competition, and I'm going to throw another event out there, the Hoinky. So I would say the Hoinky was kind of rivaled the high roller with the pay and the format. Did you guys like coexist, or were there like a rivalry between you and the Hoinky family? Like, how did that ever work out? And I think we're frozen again. Maybe it's my internet. I think Brad's frozen. You know what?
I'm back in.
There he is. He's back. I think he's back.
I'm back now.
Did you hear did you hear the question I asked?
Yeah, I did. No, we weren't in conflict with the Hoinkies, just the opposite. Irv was a huge supporter of high roller, even in year one when he never heard of us. In 1982, he brought several bowlers out to compete. Liked what he saw. He brought as many as 10 people out there, bowlers, naturally mostly good bowlers who had a chance to do them right, and in a lot of cases paid their expenses as well. Air and travel, food out there. So Irv did great with that, and we met so many people from the Cincinnati, the Ohio, Kentucky area because of the Hoinky family. That wasn't a conflict.
So never any conflict. There was always this camaraderie, basically.
It was camaraderie. My dad and Irv were friends. They shared crap tables many nights, there at Showboat, and we actually the opposite of a conflict is the Hoinky actually helped develop the professional amateurs because now they had a second Megabuck event to bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the Super Hoinky. You're not talking about the long run.
No, the Super, the one around Thanksgiving.
Thanks you. That was the Super.
The Super. Yep.
Western Bowl. Yeah. And by the way, I'm one of the few living Americans that have never been to Western Bowl. I
really
apologize to everybody. I've never been there.
You got a Mexican restaurant on the side of the building there. It's attached to it. And
I'll remember that if I ever get there.
So you had that. So let me ask you this. So we were talking about the Megabuck era, right? So you had the Super in Thanksgiving time and whatnot. But, and again, I'm younger, so I don't know how it was in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. But I remember when I started bowling in 2004, you had the Mini. You had, the first year was the TAC, TAC, not the TAC. The TAC. Was this right? So when did the Eliminator and the Mini Eliminator, and then there was another Eliminator, the name escapes me, but there was all these Eliminator. When did they all start to form? Because it was now, instead of going to Vegas for, let's say, 7 days, guys are going to Vegas for 2 weeks because you had the roller, you had the Eliminator, you had this, you had that. They were there for like half a month, basically.
Yeah, and that was the downfall of the high roller. Because if you look back from 1982 into the mid 90s, we never had any competition. We were the only game in town. When Steve Sanders opened up the Mini Eliminator at Sam's Town, it drew a lot of bowlers away. He had a different format. At that point, wasn't paying out the prizes that the high roller was, but the bowlers were starting to realize, hey, there's another game in town, and then the TAC, then Ed McWilliams TAC, And now all of a sudden you could come out to Vegas, and if you have a bad week, you really had a bad week.
You had a real bad week.
And there was a chance we wouldn't see you next year,
Mm-hmm.
or for a couple of years, or possibly ever. I mean, you could get really hurt out there with the money these guys were spending going from center to center, the Texas station to Sam's Town, back to Showboat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was rough on a lot of bowlers, and that's when we started losing a lot of entries.
When did the Red Hot start? So the Red Hot was like a little subsidiary tournament of the main events, and they were across the country. And I remember there was one, Maple Shade, Laurel Lanes had them, Carolier had it. When did the Red Hots? And they had good prize funds too, Brad. They were pretty good. They paid really well.
Yeah, they were good. We actually started them in the late '80s. We called them High Roller 300s because it was a $300 entry fee, and we went all over the country. And we went to Texas and California and Oklahoma, which was the largest ever, by the way, in Tulsa, and Atlantic City. We did one there, and they were good, but there were a lot of work and never got the turnout that the Las Vegas tournaments did.
So there were a lot. I mean, I want to start throwing names out, but I want to hear some stories about certain guys and whatnot. So we'll talk about the Red Hots. Talk about the Red Hots. We'll start there.
Yeah.
I remember one year, a guy from my neck of the woods, from New York, passed away a couple of years ago, and nickname was the Bat.
Yeah, Joe Tusa.
Yeah.
I have a whole section in my book about
you do.
Yeah. And I wish I had more room because there was a lot more.
You could have wrote a whole book just about Joe Tusa.
Yeah, you just about could have. He was a unique. I like Joe, by the way. He's a
great guy.
Yeah. He was tough to cross with, from what a lot of the bowlers say. Tough guy to cross with, and then if you had to listen to his stories afterwards about why he didn't make a cut, that got a little old too. But Joe was basically a good guy.
Joe won a Red Hot, correct?
Yes.
But he never won the main event. He won a Red Hot, but he made a couple runs in the main event.
He won some rounds, yeah, and won sweepers as well. And in fact, Joe was on tour most of the early '80s when we were getting started. He was out on tour, never won out on tour. But that's why we didn't see him till late '80s, maybe even early '90s. And he came out in his first tour. Of course, I knew him, since the '70s. But he came out for his first high roller, and I believe it was in the early '90s. And he entered a sweeper for the first time and won it. And his remark was, "Of course I won it. What did you think was going to happen?"
With his long
that was Joe. Yeah.
So let me give you another lefty.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to ask you this question later. So when I kind of put my Mount Rushmore of the high roller era, this guy may be number one on my list.
Okay.
Michael Lickstein.
Great player.
Phenomenal player. Nicest guy in the world, too.
Yeah. Part of Chris Vialli's group. I remember Mike Lickstein and Patrick Allen came down to our handicap events in New Jersey when they were only 15 and 16.
Oh, God.
With a letter from their parents. I think I might even have it signed by Larry Lickstein. Yeah, let my kid bowl. Give him the money if he wins.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Litch won the main event. He won in Vegas.
Yes.
But didn't he win something in Atlantic City as well?
He finished second in Atlantic City.
And now what? And so getting back to that, so that wasn't one of the main events. So what was? So what?
No, that was a pretty big event. George Tigner won that, and he beat Lickstein. I'm sorry, I thought my phone was off.
No, you're okay.
No, that's the office phone. I'm still at High Roller headquarters. Here it is. It's 5:30, and I'm still working at our headquarters. I should give you a tour here if you want.
You know what? I was actually supposed to go to Vegas Thursday.
Really?
I went out to Vegas for vacation, and I had a little kidney stone issue, so we had to go.
Sorry.
But next time I come out, I'll have to give you a holler, and I would love to take a tour of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Wendy left. Cheryl's off today. Tasha, Norm, and Kayla and are on a cruise, and I'm it. I'm it today.
So Litchie won
the
main event, Litchi finished second Atlantic City.
Yep.
And I believe he won on one of the Red Hots too, right? I mean, Litchi, I would say he's one of those professional amateurs that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I don't believe he won a Red Hot.
Okay.
I'm sure he did well. I'm sure he got his checks each time. Between him and Patrick Allen, they were that was the group, the Kidlets. If you're familiar with the Kidlets of America, Kiddies of America, that's what Jordan Asperg started, along with Viali and Lickstein, Scotty Oliver, and a whole bunch of them. And they used to travel together. Before, to go back to your other point about areas of the country, they'd come from the New England area, and then we had the Long Island group with Rudy and Paul Piloteri and all those knuckleheads, and Joe Vito's group in South Texas and the Dallas, Texas area and Southern California. They came in groups, and there was a lot of camaraderie, and there was a lot of strict competition too. There were times we needed security down there.
Really?
Based on the draws. There were times where if somebody from Southern California drew somebody from New York, I'm not going to mention names, we knew that was going to get a little testy. They'd be 20 deep in the back, and everybody's betting and everybody's yelling, and there were times it got a little crazy. Not often. And the rumor that somebody pulled a gun in the middle of a match, that never happened. Yeah, that was just one of the rumors.
So we talked Litch. So the next one I was going to bring up was Rudy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Rudy's a legend, an amateur action legend.
Yep.
Anywhere. You mentioned the name. Everybody knows who Rudy is.
Deservedly. Yep.
Sure. So, and Rudy just the loudest slap you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
So, do anything stick out? Any good Rudy roller memories that we can think of? Well,
I'll give you a couple. Let me throw this one out. This is just a quick one, just
sure.
On a personal basis. I hadn't seen Rudy for a while. He's down in Mississippi doing his auction thing down there. Quit bowling. I hadn't seen him for a while, and he started bowling the senior tour just a couple of years ago. And I stopped in at Sam's Town just last year. I just check out the Senior Open. And I'm talking to somebody, I forget who, and all of a sudden, from the back, I get the biggest bear hug I ever got in my life. And I turn around, of course, it's Rudy. And we hugged and took pictures and this and that. Mike, the next day, I couldn't move either of my shoulders. It was just, yeah.
And so Rudy was an arm wrestler as well. Nobody knows that. He was a champion arm wrestler.
Well, I didn't know that, but I certainly believe it.
Yes, he was.
Let me tell you a couple of Rudy stories.
Please.
They're fun. And some of them didn't get in the book. How I first met Rudy, first of all. He was a young up-and-coming kid in Long Island, and he's starting to get a reputation, but he's running around with 185 average, bowling every handicap tournament he could. And he might have been 17, maybe 18, no more than that. So we had a handicap event in Paterson, New Jersey running. It was a 2-day event, just to beat the board thing. No finals or anything. You come down, bowl your score, and you leave. And Rudy came down, and they were tough at this point. This was Q Lanes, actually, in Elmwood Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
And Rudy came in with his entourage. And I had never seen Rudy, been hearing all about him. Everybody says, watch for this kid, Rudy. And this place was always tough, had a reputation of always tough conditions, very hard. Couldn't get the corner pins out. So I'm going to guess that a handicap score of 680 might have been leading all day Saturday into the 2 squads we're going to have on Sunday. Rudy gets there for the last squad. He goes 240, 240, front 7. Throws the 8th one, turns around to the crowd and just says, "What are y'all looking at?" Like that. And of course he won. He didn't shoot 300, but he obviously won by 120 pins. That was my first experience with Rudy.
That's coming from the Tapp family, Mrs.
Yeah,
Tapp.
that's Marlis. Marlis works with us every August.
So that was the first. That was the first time you ever saw Rudy.
First time I ever saw Rudy. Then he won our Fair Lanes high
Yes,
roller.
he did.
Yeah,
Yep.
he won that. That was televised too, by the way.
Yeah, he had the high roller billboard name shirt on.
Well, everybody did. That was a rule back then. You had to wear a high roller shirt. Yeah, we got rid of that after the sponsors said they'd rather have their name on it, and we agreed.
So as time went on, Rudy became more prevalent and more.
Yeah, he won the Hoinky. He won the Hoinky also.
He won the Super. So
yeah.
Is there another Rudy moment or another Rudy memory from all the years of the roller that stands out, or a particular match maybe that you can think of Rudy?
Not so much of a match, but we had a sweeper that you mentioned Chris Barnes said he had the only 500. It might have been that year he's probably talking about. We had some years we let him score a little bit more than others. We'll have to get Len Nicholson on and talk about that. But Rudy came up to me after a sweeper. Actually, that's not what happened. What happened was I got called down as tournament staff to lanes, 51, 52. Somebody needed a tournament staff member. They're done now. The sweeper squad's over. It's quiet now. There's no pins going up and down. And there's Rudy. And Rudy said, it's ridiculous to make him this tough. I just bowled 530 and I'm Rudy. If I shoot 530, I don't know who's going to win this thing. I said, Rudy, somebody's going to win. Nice talking to you. See you tomorrow. And that was the end of that conversation. So Rudy comes back. And Mike, I can only promise you this, and you could check it out with Len Nicholson and 80% of the bowlers that were there. We never changed conditions night to night. Condition was the same. It was the second sweeper squad, just like the day before. Rudy shoots 544 for 2.
Jesus.
He could have quit in the 7th frame and still won. And I said, Rudy, what'd you think tonight? And he said, ball change. And that was the end of that. So he goes from 530. What I meant, I'm sorry, I meant 330 at first.
330.
He shot 330. Yeah, 160, 160, and said, if I can't shoot more, nobody can.
So let's go to another New Yorker.
Yeah.
And this one, I had the honor of getting to know this guy a little bit towards the end before he stopped bowling. And I think, and most people, bowling nerds like myself, say this is the greatest amateur player to ever put a pair of shoes on.
Whoa.
The biggest what-if career if he would have not had some demons. So I want to hear a little bit about Mike Newman.
Oh, boy.
What a talent, right?
Oh, yeah, great. Credible talent. Bowled good on everything. I didn't see a lane condition. He didn't bowl well, or at least good enough to do what he needed to do. But yeah, he made one of our shows, and in the 10th frame, he comes to me as tournament director, says, I want a re-rack. And I got behind him, and I looked at the rack. I said, what's off, Mike? He says, I don't know, one of those pins in the back. And I looked at it and I said, Mike, shoot it. And he looked at me and gave me a really nasty, and I've known Mike for a long time by this point, gave me a nasty look. And of course he flushed the 10 in the pit and he wins the match.
I'll have to throw it better.
Didn't move, didn't change anything. He was just delaying the match. That's all he was doing.
I remember Newman, I guess you had like a strike shootout thing as well.
Yeah.
He won that, and that was with John Gaines and Lonnie, right?
Yeah, Lonnie Wallachek, sure.
So Newman never won the main event, correct?
Not ours, no.
No, not yours.
Oh, no, he won the Super Bowl high roller.
Oh, did he?
He won the first Super Bowl high roller. The very first one. Might have paid $40,000. 1993. That was the first Super Bowl high roller.
And he was a regular going back every year. He was one of those.
Yeah, he had been bowling since the 80s. He was in Jimmy Martino's stable. You were calling these things groups. A lot of them were stables where they had one backer like Irv Hoyke picking up all the expenses, and bowlers were standing in line to get into Jimmy Martino's stable because he was a great guy. He had money to spend. He didn't cut anybody out. Whatever they wanted to bowl, he would buy them balls if he thought it was necessary. He knew what was going on, and he knew who his players were, and every bowler in his stable was a factor out there. Of course, Mike was one of them for a while.
So let's move across the country. So we did New York, New England, we did New York. Let's go down to like the Southwest. So let's go to Texas. So I think of amateur playing out in Texas. There's always one guy I think of, and we talked about him already briefly, Joe Vito.
Joe Vito, yeah.
And Joe Vito, nobody really, I don't say nobody knows him because he wasn't a Barnes or Rudy, a Newman, but Joe Vito was tough. And Joe Vito was a hell of a bowler.
Still is.
He is. Now,
we saw him in October. He shot 780 in our senior tournament.
Did he really?
Yeah.
So now I also heard, Brad, and I don't know how true this is, there was a lot of action after the day was over.
Yeah.
And Vito was notorious for bowling action out at the roller.
Yeah.
So that is true then. So Joe was Mr. Action, basically.
Yeah, Joe. Well, that's what he's known for. And he said not a lot of people know him, but all the good bowlers know him.
Yes.
All the good bowlers around the country know Joe Vito. Joe bowled. There was an action match. I'll tell you what happened. Mark Roth was there, and Mark Roth. This is how the action started this night. Somebody bet Mark. Mark was chirping a little bit about how good he was left-handed, and somebody wanted to bet him on what he could do. So Mark actually shooted up on lanes 1 and 2 and shot 700 left-handed.
Jesus.
Yeah, and of course won the bet, and now everybody's hey, now the action started. Now I want to bowl you. You want to bowl. Mark didn't want to bowl anybody. Mark wasn't an action bowler really. I was kind of surprised he got in the middle of that, but he proved himself as usual. So Joe Vito was there. And Joe ended up bowling a doubles match with Norm Duke.
Okay.
So it's Vito and Duke against, and you mentioned him before, Roger Gardner. And I'm trying to think of who it was. You got to remember, Mike, I'm 75 years old now. This was a long time ago. But whoever Roger's doubles partner was, and these were, when you talk about Duke and Vito in a match, they didn't.
They're world class
for $20. There was a lot of money involved on the lanes and a lot more behind the lanes. Mm-hmm. So whoever it was that Roger teamed up with, and I'll think of it, actually made double pinochle to win the match. And that was the end of it for that night because everybody stopped. Well, whoever was bowling action, we were using 36, maybe 40 lanes. Everybody's bowling, but everybody stopped to watch this match because there were 4 very well-known players right there. And that ended the action. But yeah, every night after the sweepers, which didn't end till 1 o'clock in the morning, guys hung around. Mike Dyson would be there till 7 a.m. and he would miss his 9 a.m. match, or come in 3 frames late. That a lot of that on a couple of occasions. Mark actually missed the first 2 frames of a match. This is match play now. This is the main event I'm talking about. This is Dyson. Missed the first 2 frames, got there for the 3rd, so he was allowed to jump in. Got zeros for the frames he missed. Of course, had nothing because he was out all night, and he left in the 9th. So he didn't bowl the first 2 frames and the last 2 frames, and he walked out, and his remark was, "I guess I disrupted this coming and going, huh?" That was Mark's remark.
Let's go up a little more. So we did Texas.
Yep.
Let's go to the middle of the country, right? It's heartland of the country. Let's go to the Kansas guys, like the Wichita groups.
Yeah.
So we had Barnes and Pat Healy.
Yeah.
Did Steel Smith ever bowl the high roller, or was he?
Yeah, 300 once in the high roller.
So you had all those Wichita guys, and then obviously like what I bowled up was Rash and Nathan Bohr and those guys. So also there was another guy Barnes always talked about, one of his best friends from Wichita.
Lumpkin,
Not Clem,
Belichick,
not Lonnie. Oh my, Garber, Dave Garber, I think
Dave
is.
Garber. Oh, what a good
And
player Dave was.
Barnes told the story that Garber was 0 for life at the high roller. And he said the last one that got him, he bowled a woman from New York who threw a backup ball. And Chris said she would go back and smoke 3-4 cigarettes in the match and drink about 2 beers, and she beat him. And Garber goes, never again. He never won a match at the roller. But
that was Mary Lockhart, by the way, from New York City.
That's the one. So you know exactly.
I know exactly. Yeah.
So this is fantastic. So
yeah,
Barnes. When we say Barnes, I would put him on that top 5 Mount Rushmore of the high roller.
Yeah, sure.
But never won the main event again. But always, everything else was
always picked up good checks.
Would you say Chris was probably the most successful in the history of the high roller? One of the most successful players that you ever had in your tournament?
One of them. Well, Paul Renteria was the top money winner, and of course he did it all in 2 tournaments until Vinny Atria came along. But he was bowling all our senior events, and Vinny became the top money earner. But if you want to talk just about the sweepers, which is where Chris won all his money, or most of it, you can't forget John Gaines. John Gaines, John Gaines, the John Gaines from Florida, because there were several of them.
The big guy, the big guy.
The big guy, yeah. My friend John and his wife then worked with us, Kendra
Gaines, yeah.
Yeah, she worked on the high roller staff. You know what? Almost everybody at some point worked on the high roller staff. I'm surprised we haven't gotten you out there yet.
So. Well, Wendy McPherson. I always remember Wendy checking us in at the table.
Well, she just left about an hour before we started. She's still with us full time. I'll show you her office when you come in. But John Gaines, there was this one. I hope I get the numbers right. If not, I'm going to be very close. We had 7 sweepers that tournament, and there had to be like 28 separate squads cumulative if you add them all up. They were $140 a squad.
Okay.
John Gaines entered, if I remember, 21 of the of those of those 28 and 117. Won money. Shot a score to a cashing score to cash, and just made it. I don't remember actually what he did in the main event. Couldn't have been much because I don't remember him. I don't remember taking his picture in the main event. Let's put it that way. But in sweepers, yeah, he was one of the main guns, and the wild checks too, and you know we could go on and on.
You had like them. They had the Murphy brothers, Chad and Billy Murphy.
Yeah. We were there, everyone, never missed one.
Let's go now. I want to go out to California. So he's a really good friend of mine, and he mentioned him in the book, and you mentioned a story about his brother in the book. I think you know who I'm talking about when I said his brother. His brother got into a fight with a guy in the stands.
Yeah, Robert
Smith.
Robert Smith, yeah. So Robert Smith was one of those guys. You know, I can mention 5 names that whenever they were bowling their match, that's where the crowd was. You know, Rudy was one, Robert Smith was another, Newman was another one. I have to think, but there's like 5, maybe a few more.
How about Timmy Mack? Was Timmy one of those?
Tim Mack was one, yeah. Tim Mack was one. The crowd gathered behind Tim too. And it didn't matter who they were bowling. They just wanted to see him. But if Robert Smith ever drew somebody from probably New York, but really could have been anywhere, that was a real good player also. And this had a chance to be a real good match. I mean, you couldn't move.
Like a Robert Rudy or a Robert Newman, something like that.
Yeah, anybody, you know. And we had some pushing and shoving in these matches. And truthfully, Mike, I don't want to go on the air with anything
Of course.
false, but I didn't see his brother in a fight. I was told he got this in a fight, and Robert actually ran up into the stands to break it up in the middle of his match. So, that's the way I heard it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things, and there's so much money on the line that whenever these high performance matches were going on, you expect anything. And we saw just about everything.
Is there a particular moment or an occurrence from a match that stands out, like a big high roller moment that obviously not on the TV show? I mean, during call, is there like a big moment like between two really big names had a good match to get to, let's say, the final 8 or whatever? Anything that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, there was, again, I'm not going to remember names. I remember one guy from Texas where they both had the front 8. And of course, somebody had to lose. And it might have been 279, 268, something like that, which didn't happen often. The rumor was 299 lost one year. That never happened. Yeah, that never happened.
No, you made them really hard at the roll. They were always hard.
They were usually pretty tough. Yeah, we didn't like the big scores. There was Tommy Jones had, he shot 750 for 3 consecutive matches and lost each one.
Oh my God!
Over the years. And that kind of did it in for Tommy, I think. Billy O'Neill also didn't have much good luck. He won in Laurel Lanes.
Yep, I remember that.
Or Carolier, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forget which one.
Brad, were there guys that, and we said it briefly before we came on live, that were almost afraid to pony up the 1,000 to bowl one game? Were there like big names that didn't do it that should have done it?
Well, the word was that a lot of PBA members, not a lot, some PBA members were PBA members because they didn't want to bowl high rollers. And if they weren't a PBA member, it's, what are you, a baby you can't come out with? But if he had a PBA card, he could say, well, I'm just not eligible. But there were bowlers that I know that should have been out there. They would have had a legitimate chance at some big paydays. I'm not talking match play because that's But in the sweepers and the VIP, we had a lot going on the other side too. The 1 to 70 side was where the match play was, followed by the sweepers, and on 71 to 106 we had a lot of other separate events.
So
going on at the same time.
So you've seen everybody come through the doors of the Showboat, Sam's Town. Yeah. You've seen them all.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Your top 5 in the history of the high roller, top 5 players that have ever given you an entry form and a check to bowl, who are they?
Talking about ability or personality?
Just ability. Forget the personality, because the guy could have the greatest game in the world and have the personality of a cracker, like a dry ice cracker, right? 5 guys that you have seen that have been successful in your tournament that you could say were the top of the, like I said, the high roller Mount Rushmore. So who would your Mount Rushmore of your high roller entries be for all the years?
Oh boy, I'm gonna hurt some people's feelings probably, but Timmy Mack has to be in there.
Okay.
Had a very great career with us and was a huge supporter no matter where he went. That plays along with it. Wow. I guess Barnes. Brad Angelo.
We didn't talk about Brad. Forgot about Brad.
Yeah. Wow. Should I throw a left-hander in there just for?
You kind of have to be fair, right? We're not going to throw a two-hander. We'll throw a lefty in there.
I'm trying to think of a Jewish left-hander. I can't. Wow, that's a tough one, Mike.
I would have went with Litchi. I would have gave you Litchi as the lefty.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with Litchi. I'll go with Litchi over Patrick. Their careers in high roller. At times their ability was probably identical.
Mm-hmm. So this is the question. This is the question I always asked everybody. You just named 5 guys: Litchi, PA, I would say Patrick, Timmy, Barnes, and whoever the fifth one was. The name escaping me right
Brad
now.
Angelo.
And Brad Angelo.
Yeah.
Could those 5 guys beat the top 5 guys on the PBA tour in their prime?
Wow.
And so that
Can
mid-90s
you
era,
make them all ball one-handed?
all one-handed, you got to use your thumb. So let's just say it was in the mid-90s, right?
Okay.
So you just named those 5 guys. Could
Yeah.
they have competed against, in their prime, Walter, Weber, Duke, Amleto, Parker, in their prime in the 90s?
Yeah, of course they could.
Do you think they were like on the same level as those guys? I mean, yes, they're all Hall of Famers,
Yeah.
no argument. But when they were kids, you think they could have competed against the best in the world on the professional level?
Yeah, I do. And a lot of them proved it. There was one year, we were getting so fed up with the same names winning all the time and taking so much grief from people that we took 20 of the top bowlers and limited their sweeper action for the next year. Okay. So that was the year Mike Machuga and Barnes and Angelo and a dozen others joined the PBA.
Interesting.
Yep. Because we took away their action. And the proof is Barnes is a Hall of Famer. Angelo, if he isn't, will be a PBA Hall of Famer. I think he might be now. Mm-hmm. Machuga's one on tour. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, definitely.
So I got 2 more for you.
Yeah.
When did the international craze start? Was Mika the first one that really started coming over from overseas, or were there people before Mika? Well, I know Mika bowled the roller, obviously, but were there guys before Mika that came on? And I'm thinking of Torrey Torgensen later on, that obviously Belmo and Oscu, and that's later on. But were there any in the 90s?
That whole crew, all the international players, the name that stands out was Lassie Latia.
That was from Sweden, right?
Pardon me?
He from Sweden? Was he the Swedish?
Yeah. He had the best record out of all of them. I'm trying to think. There was a contingent of Germans that used to come out. Didn't all do very well, but a lot of them were in play, got checks. We had the group from Korea that Storm brought over a couple of times.
With the helicopter guys, like the
those ones. Helicopters, yeah. CP Ho and his crew, and a lot of them were good bowlers too. We had a large contingent from Canada.
Billy Rowe, right?
Yeah, and Mexico. Yeah, he made a show. He made one of our shows. But the first, I'm gonna say it was the Germans.
Interesting.
They were the first group to come over. Yeah, Helgi Lindner and Rainer Renayer were travel agents, worked together over there in München, and brought a bunch over every year.
I don't want to go too much longer, but I know it's getting late and whatnot, and we have an hour. I could do this for another 4 hours, so I'm going to have to bring it back another time if you want to come back.
It'd be my pleasure.
You're the best. How about the A game? So was that I'm going by memory. David Ozio won the A game, correct? Was that he the first one to win that?
Yeah, I believe he was. Yeah.
So was that the first event that you opened it up to have PBA members bowl in?
It wasn't the first, but might have been the last, because if I remember right, we had 4 out of the top 4. 3 of them were PBA members, and out of the 300 entrants, we only had 20 PBA entrants. So that kind of, put a damper on everything. We were trying our best to make it work. Not so much for the guys winning out on tour, but for the at that time PBA membership was gigantic, and it was for the others. It was for the senior players. It was for the regionals. They called them residents back then. There was a status for them. You could be Tour 1 or 2, and the Tour 2. The only reason you were Tour 2 was based on the number of events you bowled. It had nothing to do with what you won. To be Tour 1, you had to win something. You had to win this, and that.
You weren't trying to put the PBA out of business. You were never trying.
Not at all. And that's why I told Gerbich that time and other PBA in management that everything's blown out of proportion. We're not hurt because we were actually blamed for putting a dent in their membership one year. I mean, in print. This came out in one of their press releases. They were asked, why is your membership? And they blamed the high roller as one of them. And it just wasn't so. There weren't that many, bodies we're talking about. I mean, if they were worried about 50 players, well, yeah, they're right. But we're talking hundreds.
So let me ask you this, and I know this was, I think it was 95, 96. Pat Healy made the show of the Tournament of Champions. He won. I got an exemption or whatever he did.
Yeah.
But Pat Healy made the show of the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah.
Now, if he would have won the TFC, he would have been ineligible for any high roller event thereafter. Correct. So no ifs, ands, or buts. Even though he was not a professional bowler.
Correct.
So if any amateur, so like if Newman or Rudy bowled as a non-member and won a title, they would have ultimately null and void their status for life at the high roller.
Which is why, because it wasn't just the high roller, you would have been out of the Hoinky, you would have been out of the Eliminator. That was the trifecta. There were 3 large events that you'd be ineligible for. So if you were a real good amateur, you had to think twice about going out to try to win, even a PBA regional.
So a regional would get you excluded as well? So
many regionals, I think it was. I think there was a rule you could cash in so many regionals, and I'm trying to remember all the rules. They change so often, and a lot of times weren't fair. But we really believed at one time by limiting the activity of these top 20 or 25 bowlers, it would be good for the next 1,200 bowlers under them. It kind of backfired. When Barnes and company left for the PBA, we realized, well, the next group up is going to dominate. We didn't really.
It's like the minor leagues in baseball. You just have AA to single A and triple A.
That's exactly what happened. And we created new heroes, new bowling heroes. That's when Vinny Atria came to life, and so many of them.
Let me end with this. Bowling is different today than it was in the 80s, in the 90s, even in the early 2000s. It's a completely different animal now. It is completely different. The eras are different. The mentality of the bowler is different.
Absolutely.
Would the high roller work what you did in the 80s with your staff and the format and the entry fee and whatnot? Could that work today with today's game?
I don't even have to think about it, Mike. My answer is no.
That's what
I said it in the book. I say it publicly. It's the most asked question. When I'm out and about in a bowling center running into people, it's the most asked question. When are you going to start the high roller again? And my answer is usually as soon as they build the showboat again, then maybe we'll do it. So, meaning it's never going to happen.
No, it can't happen. I mean, the generation is different. The player's mentality is different now. And
sure,
those guys were like, we've talked about tonight, they were like assassins almost. They just didn't care. They put the money up, and it didn't matter who was letter A or B or who was across from them.
Yeah.
They bowled. Yeah. And now it seems like it's more of an ego thing. It's, well, what pattern are we bowling on? And what's the volume? And what's the length? It almost like the bowler today they have to be catered to almost, like coddled. Yeah. Where I think Timmy Mack cared what the pattern was, or Newman cared what the pattern was. They didn't care.
They figured it out.
And you never did it. You never released anything. Like when Lenny did the lanes, there was never like a pattern release.
No, never, ever published. Steve Sanders started that, and that was, and I told Steve, that's the worst thing you can do, and now it's everywhere. And it gives certain players such an advantage to have the pattern, and it gives players a disadvantage. Somebody comes out to our events, and we publish the patterns now because we're kind of forced to, and in our mind, you publish a pattern, just long or short, to help you determine what you're going to bring, which 8 you're going to bring, and which 8 you're going to leave home. But, we'll have people come out and say, look, we put your pattern down. It's nothing like what we're bowling on tonight. And I said, well, what oil are you using? What stripper? What machine? Tell me a little bit about your surface. It just, just everything. It only helps the better players to me to know.
If
And it
there,
blows up in 6-7 frames anyway. So what's the difference?
if there was one guy that never entered your event that you would have loved to see bowl, who would it have been? And I think I kind of know the answer based on the book. I think I got an idea of maybe who you would say.
I think the name that jumps to mind the most would probably be Parker.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not who I was thinking.
Who are you thinking?
I was thinking of Roth.
Yeah. Okay.
So why Parker? And Parker like a second father to me. So why Parker?
I'd like to see what he would do on that pressure early on. You know, now these guys don't have any pressure because they've been through it all.
Yeah.
But early on, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, might have been a little pressure on Parker like it was with Barnes. As good as those guys were, it wasn't a gimme. They still had to go out and bowl.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys right behind them in the sweepers with a strike here or there, and they go from second to seventh. I would have loved to seen some of the whole PBA Hall of Famers see what they could have done. What would have read? I would have loved to see that.
I think Weber would have been perfect in that kind of a format. His mentality he kind of had the mentality of a Rudy or a Newman, like that killer instinct where it was just, tunnel vision straight ahead. Well, I'm sure he would have drew a big crowd. If
I was just going to say he would be one of the ones to draw the crowd. Yeah, and he would have done fine out there too, as Parker and Walter Ray would have. Yeah, and again, Mark Roth wasn't he wasn't the action bowler. He wasn't. He was the the eight game block here and another one tomorrow, and they'll bowl 44 games. And then 24 games a match. That was Mark Roth.
So Roth would beat you in the marathon, not in the sprint. He wasn't a sprinter. He was more of a marathon guy.
Well, I never saw him in a sprint. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Bob Simonelli might call me tonight, Simonelli Jr. He might call me and yell at me because,
Yeah, they were very close.
They were, the whole family. And he might say, you're off your rocker. I've never seen Roth bowl at any of the action. I've seen him there. Mm-hmm. But not bowling. So I don't know what that means. Nothing.
I could keep going. I mean, I could bring up Bob Perry. Frankie Grasso is another good friend of mine. He finished second in Renteria.
Yes, he did.
I bring up Janet. I mean, there's so many guys that I feel like you started their careers. High rollers started the careers of some of these guys.
Well, Mike Wolf, when he won his second title, he texted me and said, Brad, we're not forgetting where we learned how to bowl, meaning the high roller. That's what Mike said to me. So there was a lot of that because it was really the first. I mean, bowling as a Wichita Shocker was incredible. A lot of, the competition was incredible. Wowchecks and Conkin and Barnes. It was great for them to grow up like that. Barnes ends up being collegiate bowler of the year, and I think Danny Nadeau did too. But bowling for money is a whole other animal. And a lot of these guys learned to bowl for money in the high roller. It's not a question. And that helped them in their PBA career, I believe.
You have to. That's
my theory.
And going back to the format, I don't think we've said this, to get a check in the high roller, you got to win 2 matches. So, okay, you win your first match, that's great. Well, you got to win the second one. And now the second one's bowling, you're bowling for $1,000 in the second one.
Yeah.
And
plus the fact you could be bowling in that second match and you've already been there for 3 days and you've only bowled for 45 minutes. It's wild. It was crazy. It wasn't for everybody.
You could have drew the bye. You could have got the bye. That was
you could have entered late and bowled the very first match play squad on Saturday. So you had the whole day Saturday off and you won. Sunday was the same. Was just more of the same first round. So you didn't bowl Sunday. And you drew Monday at 4 o'clock. So you bowled Saturday at 9 a.m. and not again until Monday at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
That was tough. That was hard.
Is it true Viala used to bowl in like a bathing suit and swim trunks?
Yeah. Well, not in match play. They weren't allowed.
In the sweeper?
Yeah, possibly. He's a pretty casual guy, Chris.
Chris is a good guy.
He's a great guy. I love Chris and Amy.
So really quick, what are you doing now? What's the high roller? How do you get a copy of the book? Tell the people. We've had a bunch of people watching. So how can these people get a copy of your book and all that good stuff?
The easiest way is to Zelle me at edelmanbrad@gmail.com. That's the easiest way. And if you'd rather use a credit card or send a check, just get a hold of me at that email address and we'll hook you up.
And what's the high roller doing these days? What's
well, in 2 weeks we start our August promotion, and that's the one that we work 9 months a year on, and we're adding 3 more days. We're going to be there for a month this year, and we're going to have 8,000 entries, and it's going to be wild and pretty crazy.
It's going to be at South Point.
That's at South Point. But our next event is my favorite event. That's the one in January. That's the Military Bowling Championships. And this is the one where everybody's military. And it's just an incredible event to be involved with. These people are just monumental people, not just for the fact of how they served our country and served us and protected us, but how they conduct themselves and the memories they share with us and the stories we hear. I just look forward to it every year.
You're a wonderful guy, a wonderful ambassador of the sport of bowling. And I will say this, if you ever need any help or volunteer work, you have my information. Reach out. I
do.
I have a boatload of flyer miles, and I get the comp set. More than
you might be sorry you said that, because you just might get a phone call from me.
I would love it. I would love to come out and add my name to the list of the superstars that have worked the high roller.
Absolutely.
If you ever need any assistance, I would be honored to come out there and help you out. But Brad, you're awesome. You're a wonderful ambassador of the game. Thank you for everything.
That's all I want to be, Mike. That's all I want to be right there.
You've been fantastic. And, all those guys we mentioned tonight, they owe you a big debt of gratitude. They owe you a big a handshake.
It works both ways. They supported us, too, so we appreciate it.
Well, if I do this again, I would love to have you back for part 2. I could, I could have done this for hours, but it is Turkey Week, and some people have to start cooking. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Brad, thank you very much for the hour. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And
my pleasure.
I'll stay in touch with you, my friend.
Do that. Make sure.
Thank you, Brad. Everybody, the great Brad Edelman. And we will be back in 2 weeks. Don't know who the guest will be in 2 weeks, but everybody enjoy the holiday. Have a wonderful, safe Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you guys soon.